Hello everyone. Welcome to tonight's story. Your likes and subscriptions can give me hope to create better stories and let me know what changes you'd like me to make to my voice. Alright, now let's get to tonight's story. Chapter 1. The Morning Ritual, Awakening to Grace. In the gentle hours before dawn breaks over Kyoto, when the ancient city sleeps beneath layers of morning mist, Yukiko awakens not to the harsh call of bells or roosters, but to the subtle stirring of her own inner rhythm. Her small room in the Okiya, the geisha house where she has lived for nearly a decade, remains wrapped in the soft darkness that precedes true morning. Through the paper screens of her window, she can sense, rather than see, the approaching light. Feel it in the way the darkness begins to soften around the edges, like ink slowly diluting in clear water. The tatami mats beneath her futon still hold the coolness of night, their woven surface familiar under her bare feet, as she rises with the fluid grace that has become second nature through years of training. Every movement, even here in the privacy of her own room, carries the precision and elegance that marks her as a geiko, a fully trained geisha of Gion, Kyoto's most prestigious hanamachi, or flower town. The room around her speaks of refined simplicity, the aesthetic principle as wabi-sabi that finds beauty in restraint and imperfection. A single scroll painting hangs in the tokonoma alcove, depicting autumn maple leaves scattered across a mountain stream, a scene that changes with the seasons, just as she changes the scroll to reflect the natural rhythm of the year. Today, in early autumn, the painted leaves seem to whisper of transformation and the gentle melancholy that comes with changing seasons. Beneath the scroll sits a simple ceramic vase containing a single chrysanthemum bloom, its golden petals unfurling like tiny flames in the dim light. The flower was chosen not for its size or perfection, but for the way its imperfect beauty embodies the season's spirit. The vase itself is precious, not because of any gems or gold, but because it was thrown by a master potter 3 centuries ago, its glaze bearing the subtle irregularities that mark true artistry. Yukiko kneels beside her low lacquered table, her knees finding their accustomed place on the silk cushion worn smooth by years of use. The table holds the tools of her morning meditation, a small bronze incense burner shaped like a lotus blossom, a wooden box containing precious sandalwood incense, and a ceramic cup for the tea that will anchor her morning ritual. She lights a single stick of incense with the careful attention that transforms a simple act into ceremony. The sandalwood catches slowly, releasing its rich, woody fragrance into the cool morning air. The scent carries her back through time, connecting her to countless other mornings, to the generations of women who have performed this same ritual in this same room. The incense smoke rises in a perfect straight line in the still air, then begins to curl and dance as the room's temperature subtly shifts with the approaching dawn. As the incense burns, Yukiko enters into zazen, a sitting meditation that begins each day. She closes her eyes and lets her breathing settle into its natural rhythm, feeling her body relax into the familiar posture that connects earth and sky through the straight line of her spine. Her mind, trained through years of practice, settles like sediment in still water, allowing the clarity beneath to emerge. In this morning stillness, she reviews not her plans for the day ahead, but her connection to the deeper currents of her art. Being a geisha is not merely a profession, but a way of being in the world, an embodiment of grace, refinement, and the preservation of traditional Japanese culture. Each day, she carries forward traditions that stretch back centuries, keeping alive arts and customs that might otherwise be lost to the rushing pace of modern life. The meditation deepens as the incense continues to burn, its fragrance now fully filling the small room. Yukiko's breathing becomes so quiet, it barely disturbs the air, her heartbeat slowing to match the peaceful rhythm of the awakening city beyond her walls. In this state of deep calm, she feels her connection to the long lineage of women who have walked this path before her, the countless Geiko and Maiko who have dedicated their lives to the preservation and refinement of beauty. When the incense stick burns down to ash, she opens her eyes slowly, letting the world return gradually to her senses. The room is now lighter, though still dim, and she can hear the first subtle sounds of the okiya beginning to wake, the soft footsteps of older Geiko moving through the corridors, the whisper of silk against tatami as someone else begins their morning preparations. Yukiko rises from her meditation cushion and moves to the small cabinet where she keeps her tea ceremony implements. Even this private morning tea, shared with no one but herself, follows the principles of Chado, the way of tea, that she has studied since childhood. Every gesture has meaning. Every movement flows into the next with practiced grace. She begins by cleansing each implement with ritual precision. The bamboo tea whisk, carved from a single piece of bamboo and split into dozens of fine tines, receives special attention as she examines it for any damage that might affect the tea's preparation. The ceramic tea bowl, chosen for its seasonal appropriateness and subtle beauty, is warmed with hot water and then dried with a silk cloth that has been used for no other purpose. The tea itself is matcha, powdered green tea of the highest quality, its bright jade colour speaking of spring growth captured and preserved. She measures the powder with a bamboo scoop, its curve shaped by generations of use, adding just enough to create the perfect balance of strength and smoothness. The hot water, heated to exactly the right temperature through intuition developed over years of practice, is added slowly while she whisks with movements that are both vigorous and controlled. The tea blooms in the bowl, developing a rich foam that speaks of proper preparation and quality ingredients. The first sip is always a moment of gratitude for the tea farmer who grew these leaves with such care, for the craftsmen who made the implements, for the masters who preserved and passed down the knowledge that makes this moment possible. As she drinks, Yukiko contemplates the day ahead. The morning will be dedicated to practice and refinement, shamisen lessons with her music teacher, dance rehearsal for an upcoming performance, perhaps calligraphy practice to maintain the flowing script that is part of her artistic accomplishments. The afternoon will bring personal preparations for the evening's appointments. The careful application of makeup and dressing in formal kimono that transforms her into a living work of art. But first, before the formal activities of the day begin, she will tend to her appearance, with the same ritual attention that she brings to everything else. The morning bath, the careful arrangement of her hair, the selection of her daily kimono. Each step is an act of devotion to the aesthetic principles that govern her life. She finishes her tea slowly, savoring each sip, then cleanses the implements with the same careful attention she brought to their preparation. The tea bowl is dried and returned to its proper place, the whisk cleaned and set aside to dry, the precious tea powder sealed away from light and air that might diminish its quality. Moving to her small bathroom, Yukiko begins the elaborate process of morning purification. The traditional Japanese bath is not merely about cleanliness, but about spiritual as well as physical preparation for the day. She draws water that is hot but not scalding, testing the temperature with her fingertips until it reaches the perfect heat that will cleanse without shocking her system into wakefulness too suddenly. The bath products she uses are chosen for their natural properties and gentle fragrances. Rice bran, ground to a fine powder, serves as a gentle exfoliant that has been used by Japanese women for centuries. Camellia oil, extracted from the seeds of the tsubaki flower, nourishes her skin and hair with the same plant essences that appear in classical poetry and art. As she bathes, Yukiko performs mental exercises that prepare her mind for the day's artistic challenges. She reviews the lyrics of songs she will perform, visualizes the precise hand positions for shamisen passages, runs through the sequence of movements for classical dances that tell stories without words. Her body, relaxed by the warm water, moves slightly as she practices subtle gestures, her hands shaping meanings in the air above the bath surface. Her morning ablutions extend to every detail of personal care. She trims her nails to the precise length that will allow proper shamisen playing, without interfering with the delicate fingerwork the instrument requires. She tends to her feet, which must be perfect when revealed in the traditional tabi socks and zori sandals she wears with formal kimono. She applies subtle moisturizers made from natural ingredients that nourish her skin without leaving any scent that might compete with the carefully chosen fragrances she will wear later. Her hair, still styled from the previous evening's work, requires careful attention to maintain its elaborate shape. Traditional geisha hairstyles are architectural marvels, complex arrangements of loops, twists, and decorative elements that can take hours to create and must last for several days. Yukiko checks each pin and ornament, adjusting anything that may have shifted during sleep, adding a tiny amount of traditional hair oil to maintain the style's glossy finish. The hair ornaments themselves are works of art, chosen to reflect the season and the specific occasions of the day ahead. Autumn calls for kanzashi, decorated with maple leaves and chrysanthemums, their colours echoing the changing foliage outside. Each ornament has its proper place in the overall composition of her appearance, and Yukiko adjusts them with the eye of an artist arranging elements in a painting. As the morning light grows stronger, filtering through the paper screens with increasing clarity, the sounds of the okia become more pronounced. She can hear Mother-san, the woman who manages the house, moving through the corridors and speaking in low voices with the house's other residents. Younger Maiko are beginning their own morning preparations, their voices carrying the excitement and nervousness that comes with still learning their art. Yukiko's room gradually fills with the gentle light that makes the morning's activities possible. The golden rays catch the silk of her informal kimono, revealing the subtle patterns woven into the fabric, stylized waves that seem to move with the changing light, creating the illusion of water flowing across the garment's surface. This kimono, appropriate for morning wear within the okiya, is beautiful but understated. Saving the more elaborate garments for public appearances, she kneels again at her low table, this time to begin her morning correspondence. Letters are written on handmade paper with a brush and traditional ink, each character formed with the precise strokes she learned during years of calligraphy study. Thank you notes to clients who hosted her at the previous evening's Ozashiki party, responses to invitations for future events, seasonal greetings to other geiko, and to the craftspeople who support her profession. Each letter is a small work of art in itself. The letters reflect the seasonal awareness that permeates every aspect of geiko life. Her choice of paper, the particular style of calligraphy she employs, even the specific phrases she uses to express common sentiments, all are influenced by the time of year and the subtle changes in nature that traditional Japanese culture celebrates and acknowledges. As she writes, Yukiko's mind moves between the practical necessities of her correspondence and deeper reflection on the meaning of her work. Each letter connects her to the web of relationships that support and sustain the world of geiko, the patrons who appreciate traditional arts, the craftspeople who create the items essential to her profession, the fellow artists who share her dedication to preserving cultural traditions. The morning writing time also includes updates to her personal journals, observations about seasonal changes, notes about new techniques learned in her artistic studies, reflections on particularly meaningful performances or interactions from previous days. These journals, accumulated over years of practice, form a record not just of her individual development, but of the living tradition she represents. The brushwork flows across the paper with the rhythm of practiced meditation, each stroke connecting to the next in an unbroken chain of movement that reflects her years of training. The ink, ground fresh each morning from an ink stick and water, carries the proper consistency and depth of colour that makes each character a small work of calligraphic art. When the morning correspondence is complete, Yukiko carefully cleans her writing implements and returns them to their proper places. The brush is rinsed and reshaped, the inkstone cleaned and dried, the unused paper stored away from light that might fade its colours. Everything in her world has its place and its proper care, reflecting the deeper principles of respect and mindfulness that govern traditional Japanese aesthetics. The strengthening morning light now reveals the okiya beginning its daily rhythm. Through her paper screens, she can hear the sounds of breakfast preparation, the quiet conversations of other residents, the arrival of teachers who will guide the day's lessons. The morning's private time is drawing to a close, and soon she will join the communal activities that make up the heart of geiko training and practice. But first, she takes a final moment of stillness, kneeling again in meditation posture beside her low table. The morning has prepared her not just physically, but spiritually for the day ahead. Her mind is clear, her body relaxed yet alert, her artistic sensibilities awakened and ready to engage with the beauty and challenge of her chosen path. In this moment of transition between private morning ritual and the shared activities of the day, Yukiko embodies the essence of her art, a perfect balance between preparation and spontaneity, tradition and personal expression, individual development and service to something greater than herself. The morning has been a quiet masterpiece of mindful living, setting the tone for all that will follow in the hours ahead. Chapter 2: The Art of Refinement. Lessons in Beauty and Grace. The soft chime of a small bronze bell signals the end of morning meditation time throughout the okia. Its gentle tone designed to transition residents from private reflection to the shared activities of the day. Yukiko rises from her final moments of stillness with the fluid grace that marks every movement of a fully trained geiko, her body moving as if choreographed, even in this simple action of standing. She slides open the shoji screen of her room, the paper panels gliding silently in their wooden tracks. The hallway beyond reveals the quiet bustle of the okia in morning transition, other geiko moving toward the communal areas, their silk-socked feet whispering against the polished wooden floors, their morning kimono creating subtle rustles that harmonize with the house's awakening energy. The architecture of the okia itself tells the story of centuries of tradition. Built in the traditional machiya style of Kyoto's merchant houses, the structure extends far back from its narrow street frontage, creating a series of interior courtyards and passages that provide both privacy and community. The wooden framework, joined without nails using traditional Japanese carpentry techniques, has weathered decades of seasons while maintaining its structural integrity and aesthetic grace. As Yukiko moves through the corridors, she pauses to appreciate the seasonal decorations that Mother-san has chosen for this time of year. A hanging scroll in the main hallway depicts persimmons hanging heavy on autumn branches, their orange globes glowing like captured sunlight against inkwash mountains. Below it, a low table holds an arrangement of autumn grasses and late-blooming flowers, their colours echoing the scroll's seasonal theme, while adding the three-dimensional beauty of living plants. The morning meal awaits in the communal dining room, where low lacquered tables are set with the simple elegance that characterizes even casual meals in the geiko world. The food itself reflects the seasonal awareness that permeates every aspect of traditional Japanese life. Autumn vegetables prepared to highlight their natural flavors. Rice seasoned with chestnuts that speak of the changing season. Soup made from mushrooms gathered in nearby mountain forests. Yukiko takes her place at the table with practiced grace, her movements flowing naturally from standing to the formal kneeling position called seiza. Around her, the other residents of the okia settle into their own places. Senior geiko whose years of experience show in their effortless elegance. Younger women still learning the subtle protocols that govern every aspect of their shared life. The conversation during breakfast flows like a gentle stream, touching on the day's planned activities, upcoming performances, seasonal observations that inform their artistic choices. Mother-san, the house's manager and spiritual guide, shares news from other okiya in Gion, updates on upcoming festivals that will require special preparations, reminders about seasonal customs that must be observed. The maple viewing parties will begin soon, Mother-san observes, her voice carrying the authority of decades spent managing the complex social and artistic world of the Geiko. The autumn colours promise to be particularly beautiful this year, and our clients will want to celebrate Momiji Gari in the traditional way. We must prepare appropriate songs and dances that capture the season's spirit. Yukiko listens with the focused attention that has become second nature through years of training. Every piece of information shared at these morning meetings becomes part of the vast web of cultural knowledge that allows Geiko to engage meaningfully with their clients' interests and desires. The ability to discuss seasonal poetry, to suggest appropriate locations for autumn viewing parties, to perform songs that capture the melancholy beauty of falling leaves. These skills distinguish Geiko from mere entertainers. The shamisen practice room reflects the aesthetic principles that govern all aspects of traditional Japanese arts. Simple but perfect proportions, natural materials that age gracefully, an atmosphere that encourages deep concentration and artistic excellence. The wooden floor, worn smooth by decades of kneeling practitioners, provides the proper resonance for the instrument's subtle tones. Paper screens filter the morning light to create illumination that is bright enough for detailed work, but soft enough to maintain the meditative quality essential to artistic practice. Yamada Sensei, Yukito's shamisen instructor, awaits her arrival with the patience and dignity that mark a master teacher. His own shamisen, crafted by one of Japan's most revered instrument makers, rests on a silk cloth beside him. The instrument's body, made from cat skin stretched over a wooden frame, bears the subtle variations in texture and colour that speak of years of skilled use. The long neck, fashioned from aged mulberry wood, shows the gentle wear patterns left by countless hours of practice. Today we will work on the subtleties of Ma, Yamada Sensei begins, using the Japanese concept that encompasses timing, spacing, and the meaningful use of silence in music. The autumn songs require a different sense of time than summer pieces. The pauses must be longer, more contemplative, reflecting the season's natural rhythm of preparation and rest. Yukiko kneels in the formal position for shamisen playing, her back straight but not rigid, her left hand finding its place on the instrument's neck with the precision developed through years of practice. The plectrum, carved from tortoiseshell and shaped to her specific hand size, feels familiar in her right hand, an extension of her artistic intention rather than a separate tool. The first piece they practice is a traditional song called Aki no Shirabe, Autumn Melody. Its ancient lyrics describing the bittersweet beauty of maple leaves falling like tears from autumn trees. The shamisen's voice, with its distinctive percussive attack and subtle vibrato, provides the perfect accompaniment for poetry that speaks of impermanence and the poignant beauty found in transient moments. As Yukiko plays, Yamada Sensei listens with the focused attention of a master craftsman examining delicate work. His corrections come not as harsh criticisms, but as gentle guidances toward greater refinement. The vibrato on that passage should tremble like leaves in autumn wind, he suggests, demonstrating with his own instrument how subtle variations in left-hand pressure can create different emotional colorations in the sound. The lesson progresses through increasingly complex pieces, each one requiring not just technical proficiency, but deep understanding of the cultural and emotional contexts that give the music meaning. Rokudan no Shirabe, a masterpiece of shamisen literature, demands not only perfect finger placement and timing, but also an understanding of the six-part structure that mirrors traditional Japanese architectural principles and seasonal cycles. Between musical pieces, Yamada-sensei shares stories and historical context that deepen Yukiko's appreciation for the traditions she carries forward. He speaks of legendary geiko of previous generations, their unique interpretations of classical pieces, the subtle regional variations in performance style that reflect different schools of training. These stories are not mere entertainment, but essential cultural transmission, the oral tradition that preserves knowledge that cannot be fully captured in written notation. Music is not notes on paper, he reminds her as they work through a particularly challenging passage. It is the expression of human emotion through sound, the connection between performer and listener that transcends words. Technical perfection without emotional truth is like a beautiful flower made of silk, impressive but lifeless. The shamisen lesson gradually shifts from pure technique to integration with other artistic elements. Yukiko practices singing while playing, her voice blending with the instrument's distinctive timbre to create the unified artistic expression that defines geiko performance. The songs tell stories of lovers separated by duty, of seasonal changes that mirror human emotions, of historical events that have become part of Japan's cultural memory. As the morning lesson concludes, Yamada-sensei offers final observations about her progress and areas for continued development. His feedback reflects the Japanese teaching tradition that emphasizes long-term growth over immediate results, patience over pressure, the understanding that true mastery develops through years of dedicated practice rather than sudden breakthroughs. Your technique continues to improve, he notes with quiet satisfaction, but more importantly, your understanding of the music's emotional depth is maturing. The shamisen is beginning to sing with your voice, rather than simply accompanying it. This integration is the mark of an advanced practitioner. After shamisen practice, Yukiko moves to the dance studio for her morning dance lesson. The transition between practice rooms requires a few minutes of mental adjustment. Dance demands different physical awareness than music, though the two arts are intimately connected in geiko performance. The dance studio, with its polished wooden floor and mirrors positioned to allow self-observation without vanity, provides the space for this different form of artistic expression. Tanaka-sensei, her dance instructor, embodies the grace and precision that mark a master of traditional Japanese dance. Her movements, even in casual conversation, carry the refined beauty that comes from decades of practice. Her kimono, chosen for dance instruction, allows freedom of movement while maintaining the aesthetic standards appropriate to her position as a teacher of classical arts. Today we will refine the autumn wind sequence from Kojo no Tsuki, Tanaka-sensei announces, referring to a beloved dance piece that depicts the ruins of an ancient castle under moonlight. The movements must capture both the physical sensation of wind moving through empty halls and the emotional weight of historical memory. The dance begins with Yukiko in a static pose that suggests waiting, perhaps a court lady expecting the return of a lord who will never come. Perhaps the wind itself, pausing before beginning its melancholy journey through abandoned spaces. Her fan, an extension of her artistic expression, remains closed and held in a position that creates visual tension through its potential for movement. As the imaginary music begins, Yukiko's movements flow like water, taking the shape of its container. Each gesture has specific meaning within the vocabulary of classical dance. The turn of her wrist suggests falling leaves. The angle of her head indicates listening for distant sounds. The positioning of her feet creates the stability that allows her upper body to flow like wind-blown silk. Tanaka-sensei watches with the focused attention of a master craftsman, noting not just the accuracy of individual movements, but the overall flow and emotional coherence of the performance. Dance is not about perfect positions, she explains as they work through a particularly challenging passage. It is about the transitions between positions, the way one movement grows naturally from another, like leaves unfolding from branches. The audience should see not your technique, but the story you are telling with your body. The dance lesson incorporates elements of seasonal awareness that permeate all aspects of Geisha training. The movements appropriate for autumn pieces differ subtly from those used in spring dances. The quality of energy is more contemplative. The gestures suggest gathering and preparation, rather than new growth and expansion. These subtle distinctions require deep cultural knowledge as well as physical skill. As the morning dance practice continues, Yukiko works on integrating the emotional content of the piece with its technical demands. The story told by Kojo no Tsuki speaks to universal themes of impermanence and memory, but it must be expressed through the specific vocabulary of traditional Japanese dance. Every movement carries cultural weight accumulated over centuries of performance and refinement. The fan work in this piece requires particular attention. The fan serves not just as a prop, but as an extension of the dancer's emotional expression. When closed, it can suggest a sword, a letter, a branch, or any number of other objects important to the story. When opened, it creates lines and shapes that direct the audience's attention and emphasize the emotional climaxes of the narrative. The fan must never be merely decorative, Tanaka-sensei instructs as they work on a sequence where the fan represents autumn wind scattering leaves. Every movement it makes must serve the story. When you open it here, you are not just creating a pretty shape. You are showing the audience how memory spreads through consciousness, like wind through empty rooms. The integration of dance with musical elements receives special attention during these practice sessions. Though the shamisen player and dancer are often different people during actual performances, every geiko must understand how movement and music work together to create unified artistic expression. Yukiko practices moving to internal rhythm, feeling the pulse of imaginary shamisen music in her body and expressing it through dance. As the morning dance lesson draws toward its conclusion, the focus shifts to the subtle elements that distinguish good performance from great artistry. The use of meaningful silence and spacing, applies to dance as much as to music. The moments of stillness between movements can carry as much emotional weight as the movements themselves, creating anticipation and allowing the audience to absorb the beauty of what they have just witnessed. In the final pose, Tanaka-sensei demonstrates, you must hold the position long enough for its meaning to settle in the audience's hearts, but not so long that the dramatic tension dissipates. This timing cannot be taught through rules. It must be felt through experience and refined through practice. The morning lessons conclude with brief meditation, a few minutes of seated stillness that allows the learning to integrate and the mind to prepare for the different demands of the afternoon. Yukiko kneels in seiza position, her hands resting lightly on her thighs, her breathing slow and natural as she mentally reviews the morning's work. The shamisen passages she practiced run through her mind like familiar melodies. The finger positions and timing becoming more firmly embedded in muscle memory. The dance sequences replay in her body, each gesture and transition becoming smoother and more natural through this mental rehearsal. The integration of technical skill with emotional expression, the ongoing challenge of every serious artist, continues even in these quiet moments of reflection. As the meditation period ends, Yukiko bows formally to her instructors, expressing gratitude not just for the morning's lessons, but for their ongoing dedication to preserving and transmitting traditional arts. These relationships between student and teacher represent one of the most important aspects of Japanese cultural transmission, the direct passage of knowledge and wisdom from one generation to the next through personal dedication and mutual respect. The morning's formal instruction has prepared her mind and body for the afternoon's activities, the personal preparations and artistic refinements that will transform her from a student into a performer, ready to embody the grace and cultural sophistication that clients seek when they invite Geiko to grace their gatherings. The strengthening sunlight outside the Okia's windows signals the approach of midday and the transition from learning to preparation. The afternoon will bring different challenges and different satisfactions as Yukiko transforms herself into a living work of art, prepared to carry centuries of tradition into the present moment. Chapter 3. The Transformation, Becoming Art Itself. As the sun reaches its zenith above Kyoto's ancient rooftops, casting sharp shadows through the wooden latticework that fronts the Okiya, Yukiko enters the most contemplative phase of her day. The afternoon hours are dedicated to the elaborate process of transformation. The ritual application of makeup, the careful selection and donning of formal kimono, the arrangement of hair ornaments that will complete her metamorphosis from private person to public artist. This transformation is not merely cosmetic, but spiritual, a daily meditation on the nature of beauty, tradition, and the responsibility of carrying forward cultural practices that stretch back through centuries. Each step in the process connects her to generations of women who have performed these same rituals, each seeking to embody the refined aesthetic ideals that define the Geiko's art. Yukiko begins by preparing her workspace. The mirror before which she will work is not a modern glass mirror, but a polished bronze disc that reflects her image with the soft, forgiving quality that traditional Japanese aesthetics prefer. The bronze surface, maintained through daily polishing with silk cloths, creates reflections that seem to come from within, rather than bouncing harshly off the silvered surface. This softer reflection allows her to see herself as others will see her, not with the stark clarity of modern mirrors, but with the gentle enhancement that candlelight and traditional illumination provide. The first step in her transformation involves the ritual cleansing of her face and neck, not merely washing, but a ceremonial preparation that removes the day's accumulated dust and oils while opening her pores to receive the traditional cosmetics she will apply. She uses water heated to precisely the right temperature, testing it with her fingertips until it achieves the perfect balance of warmth without. The cleansing cream she applies comes from a formula unchanged for generations, a mixture of nightingale droppings, rice bran, and special clays that have been prepared by traditional methods. The ingredients might seem unusual to modern sensibilities, but each has been chosen for specific properties developed through centuries of experimentation and refinement. The nightingale droppings, rich in enzymes, provide gentle exfoliation. The rice bran offers moisturizing and skin-softening properties. The clays help create the smooth, poreless surface that will serve as the foundation for her makeup. As she massages the cleansing mixture into her skin with circular motions that have become meditative through repetition, Yukiko begins the mental preparation that is as important as the physical transformation. She contemplates the evening ahead, the clients she will entertain, the conversations she will guide, the artistic performances she will offer. Each gathering is unique, requiring her to adapt her persona while maintaining the essential grace and refinement that define Geiko artistry. The cleansing complete, she applies a light layer of camellia oil to provide moisture and protection for her skin. The oil, pressed from seeds of the tsubaki flower that blooms in winter gardens, carries subtle fragrance and protective properties but have made it treasured by Japanese women for centuries. As she smooths the oil across her face and neck, she appreciates its silky texture and the way it makes her skin seem to glow from within. The next stage involves the application of the white base makeup that creates the Geiko's distinctive porcelain-like complexion. This process requires patience, skill, and perfect attention to detail. Any unevenness or imperfection will be magnified under the soft lighting of the evening's entertainment spaces. The white makeup, called oshiroi, comes in the form of a paste made from rice powder, water, and binding agents. Yukiko mixes small amounts fresh for each application, adding water drop by drop until the consistency reaches the perfect smoothness that will apply evenly without streaking or caking. The mixing itself becomes a form of meditation. The slow, circular motions of the brush creating a mixture that seems to capture and reflect light. She begins the application at her hairline, using a flat brush to spread the white base in thin, even layers that build slowly toward opacity. The process requires working in sections. First the forehead, then the cheeks, then the chin and neck, with each area receiving the same careful attention. The goal is not simply to cover her natural skin tone, but to create a new surface that seems to glow with inner light. The most challenging aspect of the white makeup application involves the neck and the distinctive pattern that must be created there. Traditional geisha makeup leaves specific areas of the neck uncovered, creating elegant shapes that enhance the natural lines of neck and shoulder, while adding visual interest to the overall composition. These negative spaces, called eri-ashi, require precise brush control and an artist's eye for proportion and balance. As Yukiko works on her neck makeup, she uses a hand mirror to check her progress from multiple angles, ensuring that the pattern will be attractive from every perspective. The shapes she creates must flow naturally with her neck's contours, while conforming to traditional patterns that have been refined over generations of practice. Too wide, and the effect becomes crude. Too narrow, and it loses its dramatic impact. The white base complete, she moves on to the colored elements that will bring life and expression to her transformed face. The traditional geisha color palette is deliberately limited. Red for lips and eye accents, black for eyebrows and eye definition, with occasional touches of other colors reserved for special occasions or seasonal variations. The red comes in the form of safflower-based pigments that provide rich, lasting color, with the subtle translucency that creates depth and interest. She applies the red in layers, building intensity gradually and blending edges so that the color seems to emerge naturally from the white base, rather than sitting on top of it like paint. The lip color receives special attention, as the mouth is one of the most expressive elements of the geisha's face. Traditional lip shapes differ significantly from modern preferences. Smaller, more precisely defined, with subtle asymmetries that create visual interest and suggest the mysterious smile that has become part of the geisha mystique. Yukiko uses a small brush to define the lip line with mathematical precision, creating shapes that enhance her natural features while conforming to classical ideals of beauty. The eye makeup, applied with brushes so fine they contain only a few hairs each, defines and enhances her eyes without overwhelming the overall composition of her face. Traditional geisha eye makeup is subtle, a thin line of black that follows the natural eye shape, with careful attention to the way the line terminates at the outer corners to create lift and elegance. The eyebrows receive complete transformation. Her natural brows are covered by the white base. Then new ones are painted in positions and shapes that better suit the classical proportions of traditional beauty. These painted eyebrows sit higher than her natural ones, creating an expression of serene detachment that is part of the geisha aesthetic. As the facial makeup nears completion, Yukiko adds the final touches that will complete her transformation. A tiny amount of red pigment at the inner corners of her eyes creates subtle warmth and suggests the presence of emotion beneath the serene exterior. The faintest blush of color on her cheeks provides dimension and life to the white base. The completed makeup is examined from every angle under different lighting conditions, with attention to how it will appear to others throughout the evening. The goal is not perfection in any modern sense, but rather the achievement of a particular type of beauty that transcends individual features to create something approaching the ethereal. With her face transformed into the mask-like perfection that defines Geisha artistry, Yukiko turns her attention to the selection of her evening kimono. This choice involves complex considerations of season, occasion, personal taste, and the subtle messages that different patterns and colors convey to those educated in the language of traditional Japanese dress. The kimono collection maintained by the Okiya represents decades of investment and careful curation. Each garment has been selected not only for its beauty, but for its appropriateness to specific occasions and seasons. The fabrics, silk in dozens of different weaves and weights, have been dyed using traditional methods that create colors of extraordinary depth and subtlety. The patterns, applied through techniques like yuzen painting and embroidery, tell stories and reference classical poetry, literature, and seasonal observations. For this evening in early autumn, Yukiko considers several options, each beautiful but conveying different aesthetic messages. A kimono decorated with maple leaves and flowing water would be seasonally appropriate and traditionally beautiful, but perhaps too obvious in its autumn references. Another option, featuring cranes in flight against a background of subtle clouds, would suggest elegance and good fortune, while remaining seasonally neutral. She finally selects a kimono that demonstrates the sophisticated restraint prized in traditional aesthetics. A deep burgundy silk, decorated with a pattern of scattered chrysanthemum petals that seem to float across the fabric, like thoughts across consciousness. The pattern, painted in gold and silver pigments that catch light differently depending on her movements, creates visual interest without overwhelming the eye. The chrysanthemums, autumn's signature flower, provide seasonal appropriateness, while their scattered, wind-blown arrangement suggests the poetic melancholy associated with the season. The process of putting on a formal kimono requires assistance. The complex wrapping, tying, and adjustment of multiple layers cannot be accomplished alone. Michiko-san, one of the Okiya's skilled dressers, arrives to help with the intricate process that will transform Yukiko's prepared body into a living work of art. The dressing begins with the undergarments, layers of silk and cotton that create the proper silhouette while ensuring comfort during long hours of formal social interaction. The harder juban, worn closest to the skin, provides a smooth foundation and protects the more expensive outer garments from body oils and moisture. Over this goes the nagajuban, a silk undergarment that creates the proper proportions and provides the white collar that will show at the neck and create the distinctive layered look of formal kimono wear. Each undergarment requires careful adjustment. The collar must lie at precisely the right angle to create the elegant slope from neck to shoulder that enhances the wearer's grace. The body of the garment must lie the obi, the wide sash that defines the kimono's silhouette, and provides its most dramatic visual element, requires particular care in selection and arrangement. For this evening, Yukiko chooses an obi that complements rather than competes with her kimono choice. A rich gold silk decorated with a subtle pattern of autumn grasses that echoes the seasonal theme while adding textural interest through its weave. The obi tying process is an art form in itself, requiring knowledge of dozens of different knots and arrangements, each appropriate to different occasions and levels of formality. The style chosen for this evening, called taiko after the drum it resembles, creates a large sculptural element at the back that adds dignity and formality to Yukiko's appearance while allowing freedom of movement for dance and musical performance. As Michiko-san works with practiced efficiency to create the complex obi arrangement, Yukiko stands perfectly still, her posture adjusted to accommodate the process, while maintaining the graceful bearing that must become second nature. The tying process requires significant pressure to create the proper shape and security, but the discomfort is accepted as part of the transformation from ordinary person to artistic embodiment. The final adjustments to the kimono involve countless small details that collectively create the perfect overall effect. The collar must be adjusted to show exactly the right amount of neck. The hem must be arranged to reveal just the proper glimpse of ankle and tabby-covered foot. The sleeves must hang at angles that enhance rather than distract from the overall silhouette. With the kimono properly arranged, attention turns to the accessories that complete the transformation. The hair ornaments, kanzashi, selected for this evening reflect both seasonal appropriateness and the specific events planned for the night. Delicate metalwork depicting autumn maple leaves provides seasonal reference, while the subtle use of coloured lacquer adds visual interest without overwhelming the overall composition. Each kanzashi has its proper position within the elaborate hairstyle that Yukiko maintains. The placement follows traditional rules that have been refined over generations. Larger pieces toward the back and sides, smaller accent pieces at specific points that enhance the hair's sculptural qualities. The final effect should appear natural despite its obvious artificiality, as if the ornaments had grown from her hair rather than been inserted into it. The selection of perfume for the evening requires consideration of multiple factors: the season, the occasion, the personal preferences she has observed in regular clients, and the subtle messages that different fragrances convey. Traditional Japanese perfumes tend towards subtlety rather than boldness, creating atmospheric enhancement rather than commanding attention. For this autumn evening, she chooses a blend that captures the season's essence: sandalwood for warmth and depth, a touch of chrysanthemum for floral reference, and the faintest suggestion as incense that recalls temple visits and spiritual contemplation. The perfume is applied sparingly to pulse points where body warmth will release the fragrance gradually throughout the evening. The selection of perfume for the evening requires consideration of multiple factors: the season, the occasion, the personal preferences she has observed in regular clients, and the subtle messages that different fragrances convey. Traditional Japanese perfumes tend toward subtlety rather than boldness, creating atmospheric enhancement. As the final preparations conclude, Yukiko stands before the bronze mirror for a complete assessment of her transformation. The image reflected back is both herself and not herself. Her essential features remain recognizable, but they have been refined and idealized through the application of traditional aesthetics. The white makeup creates a surface that seems to glow with inner light. The carefully applied colors add life and expression. The elaborate costume transforms her body into a sculptural element within the overall artistic composition. The psychological transformation is as complete as the physical one. The process of applying makeup and costume serves as a form of meditation, a gradual shifting of consciousness from private individual to public artist. By the time the last kanzashi is positioned and the final adjustments made to her kimono, Yukiko has become something more than her ordinary self. She has become a living embodiment of centuries of refined aesthetic tradition. The afternoon light filtering through the Okia's paper screens has begun to take on the golden quality that announces the approach of evening. Soon, clients will begin to gather in the tea houses and restaurants of Gion, expecting entertainment that will transport them from the ordinary concerns of daily life into a realm of beauty, refinement, and cultural sophistication. But first, there is a moment of stillness, a brief meditation that allows the transformation to settle completely. Yukiko kneels in seiza position, her elaborate costume requiring careful attention to maintain its perfect arrangement. She breathes deeply, feeling the weight of the kimono, the constraint of the obi, the delicate balance of the kanzashi in her hair. These physical reminders of her transformation serve to complete the psychological preparation for the evening ahead. The mirror shows her a figure from a classical painting, timeless, serene, perfect in its artificial perfection. This is the image that clients seek when they request the company of Geiko, the embodiment of aesthetic ideals that can transport them temporarily from the modern world into a realm where beauty and refinement still hold supreme value. As the sun begins its descent toward the western mountains that ring Kyoto, Yukiko's transformation from private person to public artist reaches completion. She is ready to step into the evening world of Gion, carrying with her centuries of tradition and the accumulated refinement of countless women who have walked this path before her. The afternoon of preparation has been its own form of meditation, a daily renewal of her commitment to preserving and embodying the most refined expressions of Japanese culture. The approaching evening holds the promise of artistic expression, meaningful human connection, and the satisfaction that comes from practicing ancient arts with contemporary dedication. In a few hours, she will use her voice, her movements, her very presence to create moments of beauty and transcendence for others. But first, there is this moment of perfect stillness, poised between preparation and performance, between becoming and being. Chapter 4. The Evening's Grace, in Service to Beauty. As the sun begins its gentle descent behind Kyoto's western mountains, painting the sky in soft gradations of orange and purple that reflect off the traditional tile roofs of Gion, Yukiko steps out of the okia into the cooling evening air. The transformation from day to night in this historic district carries a magical quality. The narrow streets that seemed ordinary in daylight now glow with the warm light of paper lanterns, creating shadows and highlights that turn every corner into a scene from classical paintings. Residents of the Hanamachi, to see and be seen, creates opportunities for chance encounters with potential clients, and maintains the visual spectacle that draws tourists and art lovers to witness living tradition. Yukiko's destination for this evening is Kikunoi, one of Gion's most prestigious ochaya, tea houses where Geiko provide entertainment for private parties of discerning clients. The ochaya system represents the heart of Geiko culture, providing intimate settings where traditional arts can be appreciated by those educated enough to understand their subtleties and wealthy enough to afford such refined entertainment. The approach to Kikunoi requires passage through increasingly narrow streets that wind between wooden buildings whose facades have remained essentially unchanged for generations. Paper lanterns bearing the house's distinctive mon, family crest, mark the entrance to those initiated into the customs of the flower and willow world. The understated elegance of the ochaya's exterior reveals nothing of the treasures contained within, a discretion that reflects the traditional Japanese preference for hidden beauty. At the entrance, Yukiko is greeted by the Okami-san, the female proprietor whose authority within the ochaya is absolute. The Okami-san's judgment determines which Geiko are invited to entertain at which parties. Her recommendation can make or break reputations. Her approval is essential for success within. The complex social hierarchy of Gion. The greeting between them follows ritual forms that acknowledge both hierarchy and mutual respect. Yukiko's deep bow expressing deference to authority. The Okami-san's more modest bow, recognizing professional competence and artistic accomplishment. The gentlemen from Osaka have requested specifically for you this evening. The Okami-san informs her in the indirect speech patterns that characterize all communication within traditional Japanese society. They enjoyed your performance of Gion Kota last month and hope to hear more Kyoto songs this evening. The party will also include 2 gentlemen from Tokyo who may not be familiar with our local repertoire. Perhaps some classical pieces would be appropriate. This brief exchange contains layers of information that Yukiko processes automatically after years of experience in reading the subtle communications of ochaya society. The client's regional origins suggest their likely preferences in music and conversation topics. The request for local songs indicates their sophistication and genuine appreciation for Geiko arts, rather than mere curiosity about exotic entertainment. The presence of Tokyo guests suggests the need for pieces that represent broader Japanese cultural traditions, rather than specifically Kyoto variants. The interior of Kikunoi reveals the refined aesthetic that makes ochaya essential settings for Geiko entertainment. Every element has been chosen and positioned to create harmonious beauty that enhances rather than competes with the human drama that will unfold within these rooms. The tatami mats, woven from rush that grows in specific regions known for the quality of their materials, provide flooring that is both beautiful and practical, soft enough for kneeling comfort, resilient enough to last for decades, naturally antibacterial and aromatic. The tokonoma alcove in the main entertainment room displays a scroll painting appropriate for the season. Autumn grasses bending in wind beneath a moon, partially obscured by clouds. The image creates a mood of gentle melancholy, perfectly suited for evening entertainment, when thoughts naturally turn toward reflection and the poetic appreciation of transience. Below the scroll, a ceramic vase holds a simple arrangement of autumn flowers, chrysanthemums and asters, whose colours echo those in the painting, while adding the three-dimensional beauty of living plants. The lighting throughout the room comes from traditional sources, candles and oil lamps that create the soft, flattering illumination essential for geisha entertainment. Electric lighting, though available, is avoided in authentic ochaya because it creates harsh shadows and reveals details that should remain softly mysterious. The warm, flickering light makes everyone appear more beautiful, while creating an atmosphere removed from the harsh realities of modern urban life. Yukiko takes her place in the entertainment room and begins the mental preparation that precedes every performance. She reviews the repertoire appropriate for the evening, songs that will showcase her vocal training while appealing to clients from different regions, dances that can be performed in the limited space available, conversation topics that will engage without overwhelming. The art of geisha entertainment requires constant adaptation to the specific audience while maintaining the essential qualities that define traditional aesthetics. The clients arrive in small groups, their formal attire indicating both respect for the occasion and their own high social status. The introductions follow traditional patterns that establish social hierarchy, while creating the framework for the evening's interactions. Yukiko's role requires her to remember names and personal details from previous encounters, while projecting genuine interest in each individual's concerns and accomplishments. The meal service begins with traditional formality, multiple courses of seasonal delicacies prepared according to kaiseki principles that treat food as an extension of artistic expression. Each dish represents not just nourishment, but cultural education, with ingredients chosen for seasonal appropriateness and preparation methods that highlight natural flavors while demonstrating culinary artistry. Yukiko's knowledge of food culture allows her to enhance her clients' appreciation of the meal through informed commentary about ingredients, preparation techniques, and seasonal significance. Between courses, she provides musical entertainment that transforms the meal from mere consumption into cultural experience. Her shamisen, carried in a silk-wrapped case that protects the delicate instrument from temperature and humidity changes, emerges for performances that have been selected specifically for this audience and this moment. The music creates atmosphere that enhances conversation while demonstrating the high level of artistic accomplishment that distinguishes geisha entertainment from ordinary hospitality. The first piece she performs is Miyako Odori Medley, incorporating melodies from the famous Kyoto dance performances that represent the pinnacle of local artistic tradition. The shamisen distinctive voice fills the room with sounds that immediately transport listeners into the aesthetic world of traditional Japan. Her singing, trained through years of study with masters who learned from previous masters in an unbroken chain of transmission, carries the accumulated refinement of generations of practitioners. As the evening progresses, Yukiko demonstrates the conversational skills that form as important a part of geiko training as musical and dance accomplishments. She guides discussions that allow each client to display his knowledge and sophistication while maintaining the harmonious atmosphere essential for successful entertainment. Topics flow naturally from seasonal observations to classical poetry, from historical references to contemporary cultural developments, always avoiding subjects that might create controversy or discomfort. Her ability to remember personal details from previous encounters creates the impression of genuine friendship while maintaining appropriate professional boundaries. She recalls one client's interest in ceramic collecting and asks about recent acquisitions, remembers another's daughter studying in Europe and inquires about her progress, demonstrates familiarity with a third client's business interests while avoiding any suggestion of personal involvement in commercial affairs. The dance performances that punctuate the evening showcase different aspects of Yukiko's artistic training. A classical piece depicting the changing seasons allows her to demonstrate the subtle hand gestures and fan work that communicate meaning without words. A more contemporary dance set to popular songs shows her ability to adapt traditional techniques to modern contexts, while maintaining the essential grace that defines geiko artistry. Each dance is preceded by brief explanation that educates the audience while building anticipation for the performance. Yukiko describes the story being told, explains significant symbolic elements, and provides cultural context that deepens appreciation for the art being presented. This educational aspect of geiko entertainment serves the important cultural function of transmitting traditional knowledge to new generations and to those outside the artistic community. The intimate setting of bocchaya entertainment allows for appreciation of subtleties that would be lost in larger performance venues. The audience can observe the precise finger positions required for shamisen playing. Notice the subtle variations in facial expression that add emotional depth to dance performances. Appreciate the perfect control of breath and voice that creates the characteristic sound of traditional singing styles. As the evening reaches its climax, Yukiko performs Gion Kauta, the song most closely associated with Kyoto's geiko districts. The lyrics, which speak of hidden love and the bittersweetness of temporary pleasure, create the perfect emotional atmosphere for the end of an evening dedicated to refined enjoyment. Her performance carries the weight of tradition. Countless other geiko have sung these same words in similar settings, creating a connection across time that makes each performance both individual expression and cultural continuity. The client's response to her performances demonstrates their cultural sophistication. They appreciate not just the surface beauty of music and dance, but understand the deeper cultural meanings being expressed. Their comments reveal familiarity with classical literature, understanding of seasonal symbolism, and respect for the years of training required to achieve such artistic accomplishment. The evening's entertainment concludes with informal conversation that allows more personal interaction while maintaining the boundaries appropriate to professional relationships. Yukiko shares stories from her training years, describes the seasonal changes in Gion's cultural calendar, explains the complex traditions that govern Geiko society. This educational aspect of her work serves to preserve and transmit cultural knowledge that might otherwise be lost to modernization and social change. As the gathering disperses, clients express their appreciation through ritual phrases that acknowledge both the entertainment received and the cultural value of traditions being preserved. The monetary compensation, handled discreetly through the ochaya's management, reflects not just payment for services, but patronage support for traditional arts that require economic support to survive in modern society. The walk back to the okiya through Gion's quiet night streets provides time for reflection on the evening's successes and areas for improvement. The deserted streets, lit only by widely spaced lanterns, create an atmosphere of timeless beauty that seems unchanged from centuries past. At the okiya, the return process reverses the afternoon's careful preparations. The elaborate costume is removed with the same attention to detail that governed its arrangement. Each piece cleaned and stored according to traditional methods that will preserve it for future use. The makeup removal requires special techniques and products that protect skin from the effects of daily application of traditional cosmetics. The transformation back to private person from public artist involves not just the day concludes as it began, with quiet meditation that integrates the experiences and learning of the past hours. Kneeling in her simple room, surrounded by the tools and implements of her chosen art, Yukiko reflects on the evening's accomplishments and challenges. Each client interaction has added to her understanding of human nature. Each performance has refined her artistic skills. Each conversation has expanded her cultural knowledge. The practice of traditional arts in contemporary society requires constant balance between preservation and adaptation, between maintaining authentic traditions and meeting modern As she prepares for sleep, Yukiko contemplates the deeper meaning of her chosen path. The Geiko's art serves purposes beyond mere entertainment. It preserves cultural knowledge, maintains aesthetic standards, provides spaces for reflection and beauty in a world increasingly dominated by commercial and practical concerns. Her daily practice of traditional arts creates moments of transcendence that remind others of values and possibilities that exist beyond material success and technological progress. The quiet of night settles over the okiya and the broader district of Gion. In a few hours, the cycle will begin again. Morning meditation, artistic practice, careful preparation, evening performance. Each day offers opportunities to deepen understanding, refine skills, and serve as guardian and transmitter of cultural traditions that represent humanity's highest artistic achievements. The ancient wooden beams of the okia creak softly as the building settles into night's embrace. These sounds, familiar from countless previous nights, create a lullaby of continuity and tradition. The room's darkness, broken only by moonlight filtering through paper screens, provides the perfect environment for rest and renewal. Tomorrow will bring new challenges and new opportunities for artistic expression. There will be lessons to master, performances to refine, relationships to nurture, and traditions to preserve. But for now, there is only the peace of night and the satisfaction that comes from a day spent in service to beauty and cultural continuity. The cycle of the geiko's life, with its rhythms of preparation and performance, solitude and social interaction, tradition and innovation, creates a way of being in the world that honors both individual expression and collective cultural memory. In choosing this path, Yukiko has dedicated herself to something larger than personal ambition. She has become a living link in the chain of transmission that keeps ancient wisdom alive for future generations. As sleep approaches, bringing with it dreams that might echo with shamisen melodies and the whisper of silk kimono, the day's activities settle into memory, where they will join the accumulated experiences of a life devoted to the pursuit and preservation of perfect beauty. The geiko's art continues even in sleep, as the body and mind process and integrate the day's learning, preparing for tomorrow's renewal of the eternal cycle of tradition and grace. The end.